Welcome to Accounting High.
They dropped us off in the back of Epcot on a hot summer day, and they took us in through these back secret gates, They gave us these special tablets, and they gave us 15 minutes to find as many of their employees going above and beyond their job descriptions we could find. And so we look back at them like they were nuts. We were like, but they were so confident that we could. And of course, we all did because of purpose. And on the bus back, it was story after story after story of people doing these amazing things above and beyond their job description. So they wouldn't tell us how they pull it off. Anybody who's been to Disney knows the reality I'm talking about. But then they told us when they got back that Disney's purpose statement is we create happiness. So everybody goes to work understanding that primarily the goal of every person working at Disney World is to be on purpose. And they're allowed to be off task anytime they want, as long as they're on purpose.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Accounting High. It's freshman year at a brand new school. Here, we have no rules in place as we're on a mission to set our own traditions. So hang tight and learn with us as we grow. At Accounting High, you can expect to gain knowledge in a completely different way than what you may be used to, with some fun and oftentimes colorful conversations involving some of the best teachers in the accounting industry. Whether you loved high school or you hated it, here's your chance to be a part of an unforgettable experience redone. While you're here, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to us right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes. And feel free to leave us a 5-star review letting us know how the school year is treating you. In addition, share this episode on social media, tagging us at Accounting High. So sit back, relax, and open your mind because class is in session.
I repeat, may I have your attention, please?
This is another public service announcement brought to you in part
by Accounting High.
The views and events expressed here are
of the next generation of accounting and tech professionals leading this space.
The events and suggestions are not to be taken lightly. Children should not partake in the listening
of this podcast.
Anything else?
Yeah.
So without further ado, introducing the star of our show,
Scotty and Joe Woodard.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Ooh, this is exciting. I got a very special guest today. Last time I had a guest on that I had written a rap for, it was David Barrett, and it was the Expensify rap, and that was a big deal. I just recorded the video for that, and that's where we met, at Expensicon in Italy. We both just got back from that. Joe, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being at Accounting High today.
I appreciate you having me, Scotty.
Yeah, so as I said, I mentioned that I made a rap for you. I don't know, like, as far as any of our listeners are concerned, I'm gonna spoil the surprise that I'm gonna be performing this rap at the next Scaling New Heights. I'm calling the rap "Soar the Sky." I think I'm calling it "Soar the Sky." I don't quite know the title yet, but "Soar the Sky" fits. It's a parody of Kanye's "Touch the Sky," and we're gonna open up the conference with this rap. It's gonna be dope.
It's going to be fantastic, and you're going to be at the Ferrara Theater. The acoustics are amazing. You've got this great stage. It'll feel like you're on Broadway.
You gonna soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. You'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR and Accounting High. You gonna soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. You'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR and Accounting High. Accountants and bookkeepers still watching the clock. Woodard schooling you with his new workshops. Feet on the street, St. Louis, peep the soar theme. Attendees will flock. Now let's go. Check the presentation. Cutting edge education, sparking innovation. Scope creep friction, shaking foundation. Process improvement, increased production. With automation and AI, no flapping wings, you'll be soaring high. At scaling new heights, you'll touch the sky. Combine new tools to help your practice shine. Joe in his prime, founded in '09. 3 cheers, 14 years, and tears he's cried. A keynote legend, Joe devotees, superfans at Evi's obsession. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR, and accounting high, STL, soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR, and accounting high. We gonna fly, baby. New heights, scaling, 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 new heights, counting high, counting high, counting high, counting high, accounting high. Keep it soaring. And I go by the name of OKR. That's OK Rapper. Yeah, feels good to be Joe, baby. Feels good to be Joe.
I'm so nervous, but this episode's not about the rap, not about me. We're going to talk about Joe. You're pretty inspirational, man. You've been on a journey. I'm learning so much through writing the rap and through everything, being in the profession. You've been at this for 14 years, scaling new heights is 14 years. Just tell me first, before all that, how did you get started in accounting?
Yeah, well, accounting found me, not the other way around. And I know a lot of people, say that, had that same experience, but I did not think this was going to be the way I was going to go. I have a classical Greek bachelor's degree. I thought I was going to be a philosophy professor. And, to do that, you need to know your Greek. And so, but, life took an interesting twist. I needed a job. I got a job at a CPA firm working on their administrative staff. They hired me to be part of the professional group, trained me, sent me to UNO to study accounting at the graduate level, and the rest is history. So I stumbled into the profession.
So this was post-university that you got into accounting. I like to go back as far as high school sometimes because it's accounting high. In high school, you had no intention of being an accountant at all.
None whatsoever. Yeah, I didn't have intention on being a philosophy professor either. I thought I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer like everybody else, but...
Oh, well, like everybody else, it's not too many doctors and lawyers. There are a lot. But classical Greek philosophy was just like a fill-in major? You were just interested in it?
No, I really was going to go that direction. I was fascinated by it. And the philosophy, as well as all other kinds of thought of antiquity. Religions, ancient religions fascinated me. So, and all of the archaeology that went with it. But again... life had another course for me, and I haven't looked back since I found accounting. It's amazing.
Well, I'm just now considering myself as like a philosopher because I ask a lot of questions and just the way that I'm really interested in that stuff now at this stage in life. I would love to see how you've applied that to everything else that you're doing. But let's keep going with the journey. So you started the CPA firm. They got you trained up. You became an accountant. What's next?
Yeah, just to make sure we're 100% clear with your audience, I did not become a CPA, but I did enter into the profession and studied at the graduate level at UNO. But the reason I didn't sit for the CPA exam is because I fell in love with accounting technology. QuickBooks was the sort of gateway drug, if you will, to bring me into that universe. And then the universe continued to expand and expand as the desktop solution began to integrate with more and more apps, and then eventually the cloud solutions. And that's ultimately what gave birth to the conference.
Wow. Okay. So falling in love with tech. And I think that's an interesting path to go on, especially in accounting, especially at that stage too. Around what year was this, or when was this?
So I began to take the technology path around the year 2000, 1999, right in there, though I started with QuickBooks in the mid-90s. And then this guy named Doug Sleater, which a lot of your audience may know, hired me to be his vice president of education. And I kind of lived on airplanes for a little while. And then after I finished working with Doug and left him, I became a contractor for Intuit. And so did that for many years while I had my own bookkeeping and QuickBooks consulting practice. And then the conference.
Now, was the consulting for business owners? Or
yes.
Was it? Okay.
Yes. I didn't start working with accountants peer-to-peer until around, well, unless you count the Intuit days. They were training accountants. But it was really when I launched the show that accountants became,
Well, tell me about the show. what was the show? What was the intention of launching that?
Yeah, originally it was because there was a vacuum in the space that was created by when SleaterCon, and back then it went by a little different name, when it diversified and began to be product agnostic on the GL side, and they removed a lot of the QuickBooks training as a result. It was a good move for Doug. I applaud his bravery there, his courage, and then ultimately it led to
become independent.
Yeah, going independent, because my story actually has the same chapter just many years later. But when he did go independent and when he did remove a lot of the QuickBooks training, and there was no QuickBooks Connect, that wasn't until 2014, there was a vacuum in the space. And so I saw a market opportunity and inserted myself right in there with a QuickBooks-centric show, 100% QuickBooks-centric show, and that actually gave birth to QuickBooks Connect. Yeah, it was
Really?
Intuit executives using my show to proof out the model. And then they came to me and said, Joe, let's be sister shows, which was very relational. And they put me on a contract to co-produce the first two QuickBooks Connect conferences. That was 2014, 2015.
Oh, wow. That's dope. So the two biggest conferences in our space, at least in the States, are sort of the same birth story.
Yeah, Scaling New Heights is, I mean, obviously it was Intuit's might that created it.
Yeah.
But I validated the model for them is the best way to phrase it.
And Scaling New Heights, did it start after QuickBooks Connect?
No, before 2009.
Oh, it was before. Okay.
Yeah, 2009 to 2013 it existed as the only QuickBooks centric show, purely QuickBooks centric show in the United States. And then we coexisted as sister shows, QuickBooks Connect and I, all the way up until 2021 when I went in product agnostic, all GL apps welcome. And I've been that way now. This will be my third year I've been like that.
Okay. Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the first ever Scaling New Heights. So let's go back to 2009. Back when, in the rap, I say Joe in his prime, back in 2009. So
I had a lot of hair back then, so the prime was something else.
Did you have a lot? I mean, I've been
did.
growing my hair out. My hair is like almost at shoulder length at this point. Not quite there, but it wasn't long, was it?
It was actually a little long. Kind of touched the collar, but it was a lot more on the top. And
All right.
so
Yeah, well, I might be in your boat at some point in the future. Right now, I'm trying to ride it out as long as I can. So, tell me about the first years of doing that. Like some of your fears or some of your how did that go? How did that first year go?
Well, in that first year, I was too dumb to be afraid.
You were the peak of Mount Stupid.
I was just the visionary and like all things are going to work out and super enthusiast and what I didn't know, right? But I'll tell you what the success of the show was just the community that I had invested in and invested back in me, the friendships I had built over the contract with Intuit. But there's also something else that was really powerful that happened that year. That was the first year that Intuit launched the QuickBooks Desktop Advanced Pro Advisor certification. And I helped write that certification. So I asked Intuit, can we train to it at the show? So they said yes. And it was an interesting certification, Scotty, back in the day, because you didn't have to take a test. You just had to, it was like a certification attendance thing. You had to go through a certain amount of training and you were deemed advanced certified, no test.
I got that test.
And then the test came later. So in 2008, you could get certified just by attending the Intuit tour. But in 2009, you had to take a test. And the test was notoriously hard. So that scared everybody to death, and a lot of people came to the show in order to prepare to take that test.
Oh wow, just to become certified. And there was a nice badge that you would get with the certification. You'd be on the directory, and there was a lot of benefits for that. I remember I got certified for that, and it lasted a while, but I think it lapsed obviously after a certain point.
That really made you hold to it, yeah. But that gave me a big shot in the arm, so I have a lot of that I have Intuit to thank for.
Yeah. So I guess, now Woodard is an empire. You've got a lot of different things going on. At the beginning, what was the goal? What was your purpose to be doing this? Yeah.
So the goal originally was a completely different vision. Originally, I wanted more QuickBooks Pro advisors to embrace the mid-market. So a lot of people don't know this, but originally scaling new heights meant scale into the mid-market. And QuickBooks Enterprise was at its heyday back then, the desktop app. We were doing a lot of work with mid-market companies and emerging companies.
Define mid-market.
Yeah, for the QuickBooks world, mid-market would be 5 million to 50 million. So we were doing a lot of work in that space. Thank you for helping me with the clarification. It means different things to different people. But a lot of pro advisors were hovering around still in the mom and pop space, and I was trying to help them to elevate upward into QuickBooks Enterprise solutions. But very quickly, that morphed into a general pro advisor audience. Really, by the time we held the conference, it had morphed beyond that and had become, because of the advanced cert test, it had become a general pro advisor audience. And then it just stayed that way. And scaling new heights, it was a simple tweak. I just tweaked it to, hey, scaling new heights in your practice. Nice, broad
Scale
theme.
your practice.
Yeah, pervasive theme. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I love the tie-in, the highs, the heights, and accounting high, because that's kind of what I was going for. I was going for a few different entendres there or puns in my high reference, but I've landed on the high school. So the Scaling New Heights kind of started as a way to scale the QuickBooks Pro Advisors audiences to grow into larger client base.
Yeah, which we still help with, but now it's about you becoming a thriving practice. That's what scaling means.
And then there you go. There's another thrive word, and that's another person in the space with thrival. But
with thrival. Yeah, I like Jason.
I used to get those confused too. I used to get Scaling New Heights, thrival confused just from as an outsider. Obviously, there's some major differences. So, but in the early stages, it was still sort of an Intuit bubble that you were in, I'd say, because for me personally, like when I started as a practice owner, the bubble I was in was zero because it was around the cloud times. And I ended up in that bubble and for better or worse, that's an entirely different audience but it's smaller. And it's a smaller group of firm owners that adopted the cloud early stages. I think QuickBooks in those early stages around that time, you were still doing desktop certifications, and then Xero comes out. Tell me how you adopted, because the QuickBooks Online at first was notoriously
not good. Yeah, it was
terrible.
not good. Yeah, and so there was a lot to unpack there, because it was around the year 2013, 14, 15 when all of this was taking place, right? And around that time, QuickBooks Desktop was still king as far as market traction. Some 4.5 million users or something, approaching 5 million users of QuickBooks Desktop in the U.S. But Intuit was at war in trying to keep Xero on the beachhead. And after Xero had already made so many gains internationally, and so they had to accelerate their QBO developmental path. But they also circled a lot of wagons. So instead of, and I had many conversations with Rod Drury sitting at the Xero office when they were over by, the Bay in San Francisco downtown. And we were talking about what we might want to do or not do. But, Intuit just really doubled down their support of the show, and they leaned into the accounting community heavily because they, like any corporation, they wanted to protect, their customers and their partners from any disruption. But the most important thing they did is they did an amazing internal disruption. It actually got Brad Smith on the cover of Fortune magazine. They did an internal disruption rather than letting Xero disrupt them from outside. And this product development path that he did with QBO was really what happened with the Xero thing. Everybody likes to dissect Xero made this mistake, Xero made that mistake. Intuit just really, they did a hurry up on it, and they got QBO to where it needed to be. While you'll probably know some of this, they had their own defensive arm to protect them from Xero in how much QBD is beloved. QuickBooks Desktop is beloved. Yeah. I mean, even as we sit here today, Scotty, there are, best I can estimate, a little over 3 million QuickBooks Desktop users. So, and we're in the year 2023.
And I think that's more than Xero users altogether in the US.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So the loyalty to the QuickBooks Desktop combined with their product development on QBO, that's the reason Intuit's still king of the US. But of course, I was right in the middle of all that, right?
Sure.
And it was funny that only after all of that died down did, I tell you what really caused it. It wasn't the dying down of it. What caused me to make the show independent, there were two factors. One was the return of QuickBooks Connect, because there's a redundancy in the market. Sister shows means redundant shows, right? And I wanted to have a unique and differentiated product. That's a key branding philosophy. And then the other was the fact that Account Techs vacated the U.S., and they were the independent product agnostic show. So if you remember, I started Scaling New Heights in a vacuum in 2009, and now I'm at a vacuum here with Account Techs withdrawing from the U.S., and I see that the vacuum is just in the opposite place. Is there a product agnostic show? AICPA Engage is. It's a great show.
Yeah.
And they're actually the largest show in the U.S., but QuickBooks Connect is the second largest. We're the third. But they're not an independent show in the sense that they're associated with AICPA. So truly independent of all professional organizations, software companies, just out there. There wasn't anything left, and so we came in to fill that vacuum.
I think it's interesting you bring up Engage, because I think their audience, or for the most part, a lot of their audience is in that mid-market, and they serve that mid-market, at least. From whenever I go there, the people that can afford that and can afford to go to that event, it's usually and maybe it's going a little bit down market, but it's usually the larger firms.
Yeah, I mean, it's a $2,000 price tag. Right?
Yeah,
it's high for a show. So yes, it tends to be the larger firms, and I have large firms at Scaling, but I typically draw their CAS practices, client accounting services practices.
Okay. And CAS wasn't a thing back in 2015 or 20. It was right up then, or it was bookkeeping.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's also your audience has always been in that space anyway. So it kind of just evolved. Or devolved, if we're going to talk about that. I mean, CAS doesn't even, it's got a lot of different names, and now we're on a 2.0. Are we on 3.0 already for CAS?
Yeah, no, 2.0 is where they're at, according to CPA.com. But, you make an interesting observation that the audience that was the smaller firm, non-credentialed space, embraced this cloud accounting model a little faster than the top 200 size firms in the country. But now that they're adopting it, calling it CAS, there's a convergence in the space of nature of work, but not nature of firm. And that creates these two different groups that have an amazing central playfield of top 200 sized accounting firms hanging out with sole practitioner and 5 and under non-credentialed bookkeeping practices. And they have a lot in common these days.
As far as the product offering.
Yeah, the way they do work is very similar, and the nature of their record keeping is very similar. And more the non-credentialed bookkeepers are starting to keep up with them on advisory too. So yeah, it's the non-credentialed and the credentialed are very similar for the CAS department.
Well, this is really interesting too for the future of the profession, because we're talking about the sustainability of the license itself and is it necessary? We're questioning that. We're questioning, do you need a CPA license to practice if a lot of these non-credentials are basically doing the same thing and maybe even better in some cases?
Yeah, I met with a top 100 firm CEO at the Accounting Today show in San Diego, and we had this very conversation because he said, because I had said that I projected the future of the client accounting services segment as my keynote. And I was talking about how more and more non-credentialed workers are going to be piling in to the whole of the firm, but especially into CAS. And I used the hospital comparison. And you heard me say this as Expensify too. When I was in the hospital for sports injury for 3 days, I saw the doctor for like 15 minutes over 3 days. But I saw a lot of LPNs and I saw a lot of RNs, and the nurse practitioner came in much more often than the doctor. But I still felt served, right? And I knew that at the end of the day, the big decisions were being made by the person with the credentials, the highest credentials. So I think we're going to see more of the hospital approach. And I had the CEO of this firm, this top 50 firm, come up to me and say, but what about the audit practice? Because you have to be a CPA to do audit work. And I said, no, you don't. You just have to be a CPA to sign an audit report. Right? So you can have a lot of non-credentialed workers in there. You just have to have a few doctors in there too.
It's like the doctor needs to sign the prescription.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too, because I think that model, in a lot of ways in the United States, has been failing us, at least our medical, and I don't know how deep we want to go into that aspect of it, because, you see how it's working outside of our insurance system and everything else, and it's all been perverted. Could that be parallel with, you've got the AICPA and other institutions that are creating like almost, I don't know. I mean, I think that the unlicensed practitioners are freer to make changes. They're more nimble. They can do things more quickly than somebody who has a CPA. They're restricted. They can't change their name in some states because you have to have your last name as the name of your firm in some cases. Or
yes,
there's certain
I know, isn't that
restrictions
crazy?
and things you can market. There's certain things you could do as a licensed professional, and if you're not licensed,
in the state of Texas, you can't even say you're an accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're a certified public one. Yes.
Right. So in some cases, an early stage, somebody that's getting into the profession, they may see a clearer path to build a better business, more successful business, just by being unlicensed. Do you then need to hire CPAs as part of your firm? And can you do it that way too?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pathway, sure. Who says this firm has to be owned by a CPA to do CPA work? There's no law about that. But there are some restrictions as to what I can call myself if I'm, like you mentioned, if I'm the owner. It just gets a little tricky because I can't say that I'm an accounting firm in Texas unless I'm a CPA. I don't know how it works if you employ a CPA. I don't know the intricacies of the law.
Well,
but then remember, there's this EA thing, too, that's super powerful. So unless you're going to do audit reports, and I would advise against that unless you're a very large firm, then you can go the enrolled agent approach, and you can do all the full slate of tax services, and there's no credentialing required for CAS.
I'm an EA. And we did an episode, the EA, our first debates at the debate teams for Accounting High was CPA versus the EA. And we just talked about the difference, and a lot of it comes down to the branding and the awareness and the market awareness. Not too many people even know what an EA is.
Yes, and the thing is, it's a hard test. EAs are arguably the best tax preparers in the country. They can represent their clients just as a CPA can. It's a powerful designation, and it's a hard one to get, and it needs more respect. It really does. I'm not just saying that because I just learned today that you're one. I've said that for quite a while,
Yeah. Well, no. I didn't even respect myself with the EA. I used to call myself as executive assistant as a joke. Like clients would call me a CPA all the time, and I was just tired of correcting them. So I just, I had CPAs that worked for me. But yeah, I mean, me and my whole management team are the EAs at the firm, and then all the the people that are working with clients directly, a lot of them are CPAs. So it's just a unique structure. But you mentioned before we got down this path of all the different credentials and everything, you mentioned a unique differentiated product. I like to talk about that because I do things differently. I've always been unique, and I think creating your own lane and being unique is a path to freedom, and also a path to make, to choose your own future too, and to do what you want to do. And that was you saw that opportunity, and you saw that vacuum, and you ran toward it, right? But as you said to me when we first met, you're not that unique among all accountants. You're the typical accountant. You're not doing anything.
I'm
that
the stereotypical accountant.
Exactly. Yeah. Very stereotypical. So, but you went toward that unique path, and you very successful in that. So, at those early stages, what did you do to differentiate yourself besides just being the only one in the space?
Yeah, well, you're talking about with the show pieces. Yeah. So that was, the 100% QuickBooks centric event. I basically became the Pro Advisor conference because Intuit didn't have one. So that would be the answer there. And then whenever a redundancy formed and then reformed after COVID, I had to make a decision again to say, well, I'm no longer unique and differentiated. So I looked for that other vacuum. So there's the market can dictate your differentiation because you're carving yourself to the market need. The other thing that drives differentiation is vision, mission, and purpose. And that's a big deal for us, and they're not synonyms of each other. So our purpose is to empower business advisors with the vision to transform business. And every good vision statement has an implied "so that." And so my so that is so that business owners and their employees can be work-life harmonized or synergized, right? Not consumed by the business, which tends to happen in the small to medium-sized business world. They lose their lives, they lose themselves, they're stressed out all the time. And I would like all those people to be liberated from that. So that's the change I want to see in the world. And that transforms families too, so they can spend more time with their spouses and kids and loved ones. So I've got this big, hairy, audacious goal and this more altruistic thing that I'm seeking. And that's a form of differentiation. And the rest is about market analysis.
What's the big, hairy, audacious goal?
Yeah, just transform those families. I mean, because you transform a business, you transform the families in it. And it goes all the way through.
Well, how specific? And doesn't it have to be somewhat specific? The goal, like, is there a number? How many families you want it? Like, is there? So
you're just the right question, because the seed of this vision statement was planted at the Disney Institute, where I went to study vision, mission, and purpose.
Ooh, okay.
Yes, and I asked them a similar question, and their answer is, if you can complete the vision in your lifetime, or if you could complete the vision by yourself in even 5 lifetimes, it's too small. It must be something bigger than you. It must be something you never actually accomplish. And that's how people confuse vision and mission. So they said think of vision as magnetic north. You know, until the GPS was invented, it's the most important destination on planet Earth, but no one went there unless they were trying to go on an excursion. But it nonetheless steered everybody else on the planet. It guided them. So the mission, by contrast, is achievable, it's repeatable, and it's in service of the vision. So we educate, we coach, we provide resources, and we build professional communities of small business advisors so they can be transformative with these businesses. And hopefully it's a vision that will continue to endure past my lifetime. That's the goal.
The infinite game.
It's the infinite game. Yes, to use Simon Sinek's wording, yes, that's the infinite game. Wasn't he the author of that?
He was, yeah. And that's great. We talked about that a lot. We had an episode dedicated just to that book, and then I also had Clayton Oates on, who talks about infinite games a lot, and then purpose. So going from vision, mission, purpose, and I like how you mentioned that they seem redundant because a lot of people use them interchangeably in the profession or just in business altogether. Purpose, help me define that one.
Yeah, so the best way to explain it is the way Disney taught us purpose. So they dropped us off in the back of Epcot on a hot summer day, and the park was crowded, and they took us in through these back secret gates, you know. They gave us these special tablets, and they gave us 15 minutes to find as many of their employees going above and beyond their job descriptions we could find. If they were just doing their job, doing it well, that didn't count. They had to be going above and beyond their job description. And so we look back at it like they were nuts. You know, we were like, okay, 15 minutes, you can't cross the street in Epcot in the summer. And you want us to find, you know, as many as we can. But they were so confident that we could. And of course, we all did because of purpose. And we'll tell you how that connects in just a minute. But we went into the French castle, and there was this bakery in the back, and it was dark, and it was supposed to be designed to be dark, no windows. And it was not very crowded back there. And there was a kid standing there with some money in his hand, and he'd been sent by his family, who I'm sure were watching from a distance, to go get a snack, a treat. But he was confused, and it was dark, and there was the turnstile or the rope and stanchion, and he didn't know how to navigate it all. So I watched this woman in the back whose job it was to put the croissants on the plate, you know, and remember, we're talking minimum wage worker, probably plastic apron, hairnet, just get the picture. This was not a Disney professional executive or anything. Mm-hmm. And she stepped away from the counter, from her station. She got down eye level with the little boy, and she asked, "Are you wanting to buy something?" And then she walked through the rope and stanchion with him all the way through, helped him count out his change, sent him off with a smile on his face, and then she went back to her station. So and of course we documented that. And on the bus back, it was story after story after story of people doing these amazing things above and beyond their job description. So they wouldn't tell us how they pull it off. Anybody who's been to Disney knows the reality I'm talking about. But then they told us when they got back that the purpose, Disney's purpose statement is we create happiness. So everybody goes to work understanding, and this may be the key thing that your listeners take away from the whole podcast because it's Disney's wisdom, not mine. That primarily the goal of every person working at Disney World is to be on purpose. And they're allowed to be off task anytime they want, as long as they're on purpose, right? And if we will understand our purpose as a company, we empower business advisors, right? My people have the freedom at any given moment to drop whatever task they're on, as long as they're doing it in a greater service of the purpose of an advisor that might have been unanticipated at that moment, right? Whether it's handling an inbound customer support call, or whether it's an escalated issue, or somebody comes up to them in the hallway at Scaling New Heights. And sometimes they'll come up to our folks at Scaling New Heights and just crying because a family member's just been diagnosed with cancer. And they'll come to our people because they know that we care about them. And everybody working the show knows that they can radio immediately in and say, I'm going to be late. I've got something to do. And they can have that conversation with that person right then, right there. And we learned that from Disney.
That's empowering. That's awesome. This has put a lot of clarity. And it's funny because I just recorded an episode on purpose with Ryan Lazanis. So this is a perfect piggyback to that. And it's amazing because I was just talking about the Disney University with Ron Baker. We were going to give that away as for the winner of the ABC tournament that we did, that whole bracket challenge. Instead, we did Hawaii because it seemed to be a more popular one. But I loved the idea of the Disney University. I've been seriously looking at that, and now you've validated that. I may end up doing it. That's dope.
That is an amazing experience. And you have workshops on everything. This particular one happened to be on brand, and they folded vision, mission, purpose into it.
Oh, wow. That's so great. So
can I tell you another great Disney Institute story while we're on it? Because it was a lot of fun. This one's particularly funny, too, because I was resisting. I was dealing with a brand collision, right? Woodard is one of our most known brands, my last name. And Scaling New Heights is one of our most known brands. And it was Disney's admonition to me that we consolidate these. We shouldn't have as many brands as we do. Now, I haven't quite succeeded in calling the show WoodardCon yet, but we have taken about 5 or 6 different things we used to have, and we've brought them all underneath a single Woodard brand. I'm not going to tell you that it might not become WoodardCon one day. We'll see. No time soon, but it would bring the whole brand together, right? But I didn't want it to be about me, right? Because if the business is only about me, it'll never be bigger than me, which is another saying from a thought leader that I follow. So
that's the vision.
So that's the vision piece. I wanted to be bigger than me. So I was sitting there talking with these folks at the Institute and telling them I will never name my company after my last name, because if I name it after my last name, it will never be bigger than me. I will confine it with the brand. So as I'm sitting in Walt Disney World, I'm trying to tell Disney. I'm trying to tell them. I see the irony. And the funny thing is, they didn't tell me the obvious. They just stared at me with this smile on my face, thinking to themselves, "Give them a minute. Give them a minute." So I do want to tell everybody listening in, if you're scared about naming the company after your last name because you're scared about that, just remember all of the companies where they were named after their founder, and yet you don't think about the person, you think about the company. And that pushed me over the edge. Yeah.
That's super important because I've always been concerned about that. That's also why I haven't used I've called myself the custodian at Accounting High, and I tried to put myself in the background of everything. Although it's like, if you listen to the show, I'm on every single episode and I'm there. But in my mind, I wanted to be the one that was behind it all because I didn't think I had that too much to offer, and I thought everybody else in the profession did. So I wanted other people to be the faces of the brand, and faces, not just one, because I wanted, and that was the same concern I had. And then I realized the name of my firm is Paget, and that's somebody else's name, but that person's been dead for a while. And this is part of a franchise, and it's a bigger system. And Paget itself has the name, but there is nobody with the name of Paget at the headquarters, at the office, nobody else. And it took me a while to realize that it became, you know, the name itself didn't matter who it was or what it was or what that, now it stands for something else. And I guess that's the same thing, obviously, with yours, too. Well, long after you're gone, if that's the name that's being used, you know, that's like Disney. Like that, it's
or right there within our industry,
that,
Surgent. Everybody thinks about an amazing tax professional organization. They do EA training.
Well, that's a good last name then. If that was really somebody's last name,
that was Jack Surgent. Yeah, that was the founder. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be about. Don't think you know if that's a hurdle for you. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. It's not limited by you.
Or you can use it to your advantage, or use it as part of the story. Now it's part of your story too.
Yes, you have an origin story that goes with your name. Yeah, because Jack Surgent was an amazing tax expert, so it does tell a good story.
So did you have any other names that you thought about using before you just went with Woodard for everything? Again, you know, you still have the two. You have Scaling New Heights and Woodard. Was there any other names that you were considering?
No other name. It would have either would have fallen under one of those two things. Yeah.
Okay. And Scaling New Heights, is that now going to eventually fade away and you're just going to have it?
No. I mean, well, conference course will never fade away, but there's an ongoing conversation in the company about will we ever one day, you know, kind of bring it all into the one brand family. And so I can't tell you it's going to happen or not happen. I can just tell you that every company retreat, it comes back up and we have a lively debate about it. So there is a gravitational force.
Frame that part of the conversation too. How many people do you have at the company now, and did you ever envision it being this size?
So yes, on the visioning being the size, because I'm a entrepreneurial visionary leader, so I always thought, hey, let's build something. Of course, big for big's sake. Our growth for growth's sake is the philosophy of a cancer cell. That's a Ron Baker quote. So I didn't want to grow just to grow, but I did want to scale the vision. So I've always thought, okay, well, this thing should be bigger, but it's not as big as people think. We only have 25 employees and we get all this done with 25, but I've got some people that are really, really high producing. Our team is high speed, low drag, as we used to say in the Army.
Oh, that's dope. And you were in the Army. So
yeah.
I do feel like this conversation is just getting started. I know,
because I just dropped a whole chapter on you that we didn't talk about before.
Yeah, but, this is great. I mean, I'm going to have you back on because we just touched the surface of a lot of this stuff, and I like to go really deep, but only time permits for today. So leave our listeners with some parting wisdom that's, you know, sort of like what you've shared today. You've shared a lot of wisdom here. But leave them with some parting wisdom.
So the wisdom that I would say, I mean, I gave you several soft skills. I'm going to give you some hard skill deals. Is life is too short to be dealing with non-ideal clients. Life is too short to be dealing with non-ideal team members. If you own your business, you get to choose. And if you'll make the painful choices to carefully and systematically build your practice around only those ideal people you work with, clients and team members, not only will your life be better, not only will your life be more peaceful and more productive and fulfilling, but more profitable as well. So set boundaries and don't tolerate the non-ideal.
Don't deal with the non-ideal.
Don't deal with the non-ideal. That's a rapper's going to have to make a rhyme out of that. Yeah, that's good stuff.
I don't know. You've dropped a lot of good lines in here that I may be able to work into the rap. I don't know. I was going to wait until after our episode to write it and record it, but I had to get it done before. I needed to get it done so I could memorize it, record a video and all that stuff. So this is going to be dope. I'm going to see you.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
About a month, maybe less than a month for sure. This is great. You've been a big thinker, a big vision in the industry, and I look forward to more conversations with you in the future. This is going to be dope. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on and talk about anything you want to talk about. It's great to be here, Scotty.
And start to fly. Yeah. You'll scale new heights. Woodard OKR in the county. Let's scale new heights. Joe Woodard, baby. Transforming the world. La 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 la. transforming the world. In accounting high. Joe Woodard, baby, transforming the world. Joe Woodard, baby, transforming the world. We gonna soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR in accounting high. Accounting high, STL, soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR in accounting. Yes, 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 profession leaders. Let's go hear from some fresh teachers. Amelia Earhart, Jeff Seabird, Jelaine St. Juice, Lisa Beaver, Denise Grove, Kat Sloan, Kath Gross Kerr, Ronald B, Randall C, Kless, Brolin Woodard, Rock Ball, Davis, Daryl, Deb Defer, Kreider, Heather, Davis, Bell, Heather, Satterlee, Joel, Kyle, Jen, Diamond, Sarah, Laidlaw, Michelle Long, Mike McCallowitz, Milky, Edstrom, Trish Tate, Luth, Cole, Allison, Ball, Whit, Michelle, Vims, Gonzalez, Aguilar, Caldwell, Ernest Cook, and Kay Parks, Nicholas, Christians, Esther, Effer, Carp. So many more presenters. Now let me in my verse right before the shit starts. Like, we gonna soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR and accounting high. Accounting high, STL, soar the sky, get up off the floor and start to fly. We'll scale new heights, Woodard OKR and accounting high. Gonna fly, baby.
I'll play our outro and peace out.